How do these cables?
Hello. Good morning, everyone.
Welcome to the fourth. Is it the fourth?
The fourth.
The fourth.
And
I want to say annual.
Yeah, fourth quarterly Fire Chat.
So does that mean we started like a year ago?
Yeah, I think so.
Feels like more recently.
Yeah. But thanks everyone for entering your questions. If you have any feedback, jokes, or last minute questions, you can also post them on general and Rocket Chat. I have Rocket Chat open in front of me, so I'll also be reading that. But if you guys want to follow along with the questions, the Slido link is actually also posted on Rocket Chat, so I'll just be reading off of those. All right, so we got a lot of questions, so let's just get started. Big things being asked, a lot of questions about NMR, Erasure, the tournament. But let's just start from the top, Richard.
Yeah.
First one, anonymous. Tournaments feel more like lottery than tournaments. How are you planning on fixing this?
The stock market feels like a lottery sometimes. Yeah, but there is this is something we're trying to fix. So one thing is like if the targets are you're modeling like 1 month forward returns, and if you're going to be 60% right with your model, you could go for 2 months. The probability of kind of failing twice in a row is pretty high. And then it makes it even worse if you're playing 8 tournaments within those 2 months, and there's a lot of correlation. It can just feel like 2 months of like, damn, this is like, there's a lot of burns. So that sort of like user experience isn't very good. So it would be nice if, there could be tournaments where that they were much more consistent and they wouldn't fail. Like you wouldn't have multiple months of sort of bad periods. And that is a little bit it's a lot what inspired us to work on the new tournaments. Hillary and Frank have a different nature about them, which a lot of you have noticed. And one of the things you'll notice is that they're sort of more consistent in some way. They're more like reliable. And if you look at the training set, I think there are fewer periods in the training set of Hillary where it feels like, wow, this is very, very difficult to model. My model from this period to this period, predicting on this was like really like a big surprise. So that's the idea of those, and they actually took a lot of work. They're using to create those targets. We needed to create a whole new data pipeline. We need to buy new data from a different vendor, and basically find these kind of cleaner signals that the users could model, and that would then actually translate nicer for us when we are actually doing the trading. And so far, we're seeing that work really well. What's good about the new targets as well is that they can also kind of help your performance in the other tournaments. So if you can make a good Hillary model, you might find that Hillary model is kind of something that you can use to help your Bernie model, and I think a few people are doing that. So that's been really good to see. I think when we launched these new tournaments, we probably should have maybe explained this thinking a little bit more, like where we're trying to head. But it wasn't just like, oh, we're going to give you new tournaments. It was like, we're going to give you very different tournaments, and they're going to be tournaments that reduce burns and make Numerai better. So there's a lot of goodness about us working on those 2 tournaments. And even though it was just like, oh, we added 2 new columns for targets, it was actually quite a bit of work. And I think any other tournaments we do or whatever we do, the thinking will be around giving these cleaner signals to you guys. Okay, a really long question for the first, or long answer for the first question.
An important one. Okay, Anonymous, are you planning on increasing reputation payouts to long-term participants? If not, why not? If yes, when?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you go to the leaderboard, it's the reputation leaderboard. So these are all the people who've had consistent models recently, and like the guy who's on top right now has earned $2.93. It's funny because it's true.
Yes.
It's like kind of weird that's what's happening. If you win any other competition, being on top of the leaderboard's typically the highest earning position. And if you win a Kaggle competition, only the winners really get anything. So there's something missing about that. And you might say, well, we could just pay if you make it into the top 100 on the reputation leaderboard, we give you 100 numeraire per week. But that would be very susceptible to being botted, attacked by, suddenly it will be rational for every single user to make 100 accounts, because if they ever get to the top 100, the first place, they will be in all 100 places as well. So that would be bad. But there is still something nice about being able to reward those longer term participants that are doing well. But we need to think about that more. It's what we are thinking a lot about right now, because we do not want, because we kind of know who our best users are, because we can see which ones have the best Sharpe ratio, and we can look at things like that internally. And to feel like it's not quite the best users that are doing the best is very irritating. And it's gotten better over the last, since we started. When we started Numerai, we were paying people based on their test set performance. So people gamed that to death. And then we switched to live, and that helped a lot. And then we had Numeraire, and that helped a lot as well, basically making it making it not really possible to bot the main tournament. You could still maybe bot reputation, but the rewards were very low. So yeah, all of the things we've been doing is trying to get closer to that. I'll tell you a secret. One of the ways you look at this is like, you take all the users and you kind of make a Sharpe ratio out of the test set. So maybe some of you don't know about a Sharpe ratio. So when you're predicting the targets, you're doing binary classification, right? Predicting a 0 or a 1, giving a probability there. But we can say, okay, well, what if we take your top 100 stocks that you've predicted on, and your bottom 100, and put that through a back test? How well does that do over the test period? And Sharpe ratio is like your returns adjusted for volatility. And what happens is, when you do that for users, you can see that there are some users that have very good models in terms of beating log loss, but actually have bad Sharpe. And we care more about the Sharpe, but we can't really pay based on the Sharpe, because that would require us giving out all the returns, which would kind of effectively decrypt the data or make it easy to know what stocks were traded. So, and then binary classification is kind of nicer in a lot of other ways. But there have been things where when we've changed something, like when we changed the tournament staking auction, it basically flipped that around a bit. Suddenly there's a higher correlation between log loss and Sharp. What we've seen recently is that AUC is very reliably better at being correlated with Sharp than log loss. Now, that might be because there are people who kind of trying to game the log loss because of how it works. And if we switch to AUC, they'll try to game AUC, and then the AUC correlation will come down. So that's why we haven't deployed AUC, even though we've been thinking about it for a while. It makes, if you know how AUC scoring works, which a lot of you do, because you're some of the best data scientists in the world, you have it basically is scoring the order of your predictions. It doesn't really matter what your probabilities are. It's just what order they're in. And if you think about what I just said earlier, it's like if we care about your top 100 stocks and your bottom 100 stocks, then the order is clearly the main thing we care about. So yeah, that's some kind of inside info on how we're thinking about it. And we want to make the next kind of scoring metric. We do want to switch to AUC. There's a question of, could we fix other problems as well? Like if we switch to AUC, could we have a lower threshold, equivalent threshold, so that we have a log loss threshold, 0.693? Could we have a lower equivalent threshold for AUC and therefore have fewer burns as well? So that's the kind of thing we are thinking about right now. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple people in the company that is like full-time thinking about that, because it's becoming the most significant thing we could do to not only improve user experience but also improve the fund performance. So I think it's a really exciting time. Tell you other secrets. We last year spent a lot of time working on the optimizer at Numerai. So taking all these predictions and optimizing them to make a smoother return path. And we hired this guy called Dan Glazer he used to work at 2 Sigma, and he also started his own fund within Millennium. And he had just so much experience with this. And within a few months, he basically took our Sharp from like here to here. And that change was much bigger than tweaks we were making to the tournament at the time. So we were like, let's keep the focus on getting that. So now we're getting maybe closer to the edge of what you can do with optimization, and therefore, which is basically risk, like taking risk out, and therefore now feeling it to be more urgent to focus on returns and alpha. So, which is you guys. So that's what's been going on.
So maybe let me repeat the part of the question here that's specifically about long-term participants. I think there's a lot of feedback from Rocket Chat and also the Slido that participants that have been with us for a long time feel like they should be rewarded for that. And maybe not just participating over a long time, but having good performance consistent over a long period of time. What do you think about rewarding those users more than users that just do well in a single round?
Yeah, well, that's kind of what we could do. Something like, okay, well, we're changing the scoring metric to AUC, but we're also changing the duration of your stake. Maybe if you stake longer, there'd be something you could do with longer term rewards. But yeah, we don't have the answer there yet. But we do want any change we do to basically be good in a lot of dimensions.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Another anonymous question: when erasure?
Yeah, we have hired a very, very good team for erasure. And there are three guys working full time on it. And it's going very well. I think it's going to be a really cool design, and also a very just very like practical application where you don't have many of those on blockchain, and we think erasure is going to be cool. So when it's going to be, I don't know. I always hate to give times. I don't think we're quite there with the time.
Cool. But watch out for it. It's going to be lit. Okay, Kolar. Is Numerai in its current form profitable? If no, what is the probability that it will be profitable within 2 years? So profitability is something that we're thinking about a lot right now.
Well, yeah, we definitely care about I really like the fire in the background.
Yeah.
Takes the edge off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we so you can have the fund be profitable, but the company not be profitable, and that's kind of, I mean, okay, so the whole like thing with a venture startup is no one wants you to make a medium success. They'd much prefer you try to win big or fail altogether. So we do not want to be a hedge fund that like maxes out at $500 million or something. So we're running it to capture a much bigger vision. So when you have a company of that kind, it's very when you meet milestones that are impressive, like your back-tested sharp goes from here to here, then you have a lot more interest in, well, don't stop now, don't cut expenses and try to make that sharp profitable. Keep going and keep hiring people and keep building everything and keep getting new data. And so that's how I see it. Like you kind of get to a point where you can prove you could be profitable if you wanted to be, but then you double down and you stay not profitable.
So probability of us being profitable within 2 years? High.
I don't know. Like it'll be our choice. I mean, it'll be nice to be able to choose to be profitable if we want it to be. So you could see, oh, in January we project that we'll make $5 million of profit. Okay, let's buy $6 million of data. It's just that's the way to play for keeps.
Yeah. Okay, anonymous. What is the plan for the large amount of mintable tokens on the NMR contract?
So what we're doing, we announced recently that we're reducing the supply of Numerai, the max supply, from 21 million to 11 million. And we gave all these reasons for why we were doing that. But we haven't actually executed the change on the contract. So one of the Erasure developers, the guy who's building the protocol, working the most on the protocol, he has written up a bunch of code that, once executed, will reduce the supply from 21 million to 11 million, and then also subsequently make it impossible to ever do that again. And that's the important part. A lot of people on Twitter were like, well, if you can reduce the supply, can't you just increase it later? And when this code gets pushed, it will change it to 11 million forever, and no one will be able to change it, including us. So that's a nice, that would be great for Erasure, because it's going to be decentralized, so we don't want to have any special powers over it. It's another kind of long answer.
But as you guys know, development on Ethereum, it takes time. Even though if you know what you want to do, you still need to go through rounds of security audit to make sure it's not attackable, to make sure that it's secure over time and under different circumstances. So that change, we're pretty confident in the direction and also the way we want to execute it. But it's going to take a little bit of time for us to make sure that it is going to be completely secure by the time we run it. This is not something that we want to do, that we want to move fast and break. We definitely want to get this right. Cool.
How do we say this again? Dangerous.
Dangerous? Yeah. What did dangerous say?
This is a very long no. I think it was referring to the profitability one.
Oh, yeah.
But that is a good, I hope I explained it, even though it was a very long no. Is really companies that are the most successful are the least profitable for the longest time in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Some just kind of go right into it, like Google, I think, was very profitable very quickly, but still a venture-backed company that made losses over many, many years.
Yeah. Amazon,
Uber, where you used to work.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy losing money at Uber?
Yes, actually, I did.
Yes.
Because
you were changing the world.
Yeah, we were changing the world. The company was growing, and we took all the revenue that we had and just invested it in new stuff. And I guess Uber never really worked on profitability until we talked about going to IPO. So I think there's a time to focus on profitability, but then I think a lot of times people think about profitability in terms of, is this company going to be around in the next 2 years? I think for us, definitely yes. Is the idea working, and do we still believe in it? Yeah, definitely yes. But whether or not that's actually going to translate into profitability, it's more of a matter of like strategy, how we spend our money and when we do things. Yeah.
Also, the tax it's not advantageous to tax advantageous, kind of like this example I gave of, we can project we're about to make $5 million at the end of the year. Let's buy $6 million worth of data. We're getting that data at a discount, because if we take the 5 million as profit, we pay tax. And then so you'd much prefer to spend the money at that time. So there's lots of ways that the capital markets work for tech companies that make this kind of stuff pretty interesting. But certainly, this would be a very good question. Well, it is a good question now, but it would be a very good question if this were an ice cream shop or a cupcake store. We're like, profitability, very important, because growth, very, very unlikely to kind of, matter.
Yeah. Also rather put that money into the prize pool than take this profit.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. When next $1 million airdrop? Unlikely we're gonna have one anytime soon.
Yeah, no plans for an airdrop. I mean, there are certain things we could do for erasure that would help it grow. For example, if there are feeds on erasure, prediction feeds that are really, really good, Numerai will buy them using NMR. And maybe if there's some that are just okay, we should buy them because we're helping to kind of seed the network. So that could be, part of Erasure's launch could be that some kind of commitment to buy a certain amount of the feeds, which would be good for you guys if you become Erasure users.
Okay, Kolar again. Are you planning to remove any of our 7 tournaments in the near future? If yes, which one? So when we announced the tournaments, Hillary and Frank, we did mention that we might take away some of the tournaments. Richard, which tournaments are we going to remove?
Yeah, so we have been doing research on which ones to remove. It looks like we might even remove 3 of them. But don't want to say which ones yet. But yeah, the research kind of says, well, actually, this tournament plus this tournament, you're getting 90% of the value or whatever. And as you guys know, the targets are already pretty correlated, so it should make sense to you that dropping some wouldn't be too bad for us. What's cool is, well, if we do drop tournaments, you guys will still have the targets for those dropped tournaments for the training data. So, like I was saying earlier, like using all 7 targets to predict the remaining few tournaments could be you could still do that. But yeah, we did when we launched these 2 new ones recently. We did say it was very likely we're going to be taking 2 away, and we're just deciding which ones.
Cool. All right, Kino. How does stake size in NMR correlate with model performance? Do bigger stakers perform better?
Great question. Talking about how, I was talking about earlier, how correlated is log loss with Sharp? And we look at that, but we also look at a whole bunch of other things. How correlated is reputation with Sharp? How correlated is the size of the NMR stake with Sharp? And I haven't checked in the last month, but the correlation between stake size and Sharp is really, really, really low. Like, it's really bad. I think it was a little bit more it's more correlated with P, the kind of confidence, but the stake size, it was very, very strange. So there could be, I mean, yeah, depends how you do the correlation as well. If you take the Spearman correlation, it's a bit better because you're not worried about the magnitude of, because you have some people that'll just like come in and bet 500 NMR or something, and the next highest is betting very little. So yeah.
But then in a way that's to be expected, right? Because stake size is both a function of how confident you are, but also just how much money you have to spare.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas P is,
it's more of a pure representation.
Yeah,
of your confidence.
But you'd still want to see that come be a bit better.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. There's all kinds of things you could say about it, but yeah, it's very low right now.
Would you say that eventually we would want to have stake size be correlated with Sharp?
Yeah, I think so.
I think if
It's not like necessary, but it's be nice.
I think if it was, it would kind of represent that the NMR economy or NMR market is quite healthy as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like you would want someone with a very, very good model to feel like they should go out and buy a lot of NMR to stake. But now there's a lot of uncertainty and other things where people are worried about burns and things like that. And then they're staking a very small amount on every tournament to kind of diversify. And I mean, that's also rational and could be, if you're a smart data scientist, you're probably doing all tournaments for that reason of diversification, which outweighs your reason to bet a lot on your best model.
One feedback that I actually got from Rocket Chat was that is not represented in these questions, but I'm just going to bring it up, is if a data scientist knows that we're going to make changes to the benchmark and the scoring, and we're hinting that it might become easier, then isn't it rational for them to save their NMR and not stake now until we actually push that change out?
Which change?
If we're hinting that the benchmark might be lower, there's going to be less burns, these new tournaments are going to be better, then isn't the rational thing to do okay, I'm just going to sit out until those changes come?
Well, it's always rational to hold NMR. No, I think definitely like we want one thing, that's sort of like part of the way that the auction works is if we do make things easier and there are fewer burns, then there will be more stakes and it'll become more competitive to be in the threshold and all kinds of things. So it should all kind of adjust, but it's just the experience of burning a lot isn't as nice as like, okay, well, I'm playing this thing and 90% of the time I get my money back and much more. 10% of the time I lose it. That's like a nicer life.
It's true. Cool. Okay, Anonymous. Recent tournaments look easier. Is this just a market change, or was there some actual change made by Numerai to make them easier? So I feel like this question is, the way it's phrased, it refers to Hillary and Frank, but maybe what it's talking about is actually the round numbers, like the recent rounds.
Yeah.
We talked about the tournaments already, so maybe we can talk about the recent rounds.
Yeah, exactly. So for recent rounds, things have gone really well.
Yeah, good job, everyone.
Yeah. On the one hand, it could be that the market's been more favorable. I mean, last year was one of the worst periods for quant in a decade, and you guys survived it. And like now, this might just be more like a normal year, be more like a year in training data. But obviously we have. So the other thing is that the Hillary and Frank tournaments actually helped a lot, and that people were using them across tournaments and finding them, not as correlated with the other targets, and therefore had a new kind of lift in their alpha of their models. So that should happen. I mean, when we did tests before we released these tournaments, it was like, this is actually going to bring the average tournament, make the average tournament better. So we'll see.
If you haven't already, use the new targets to help train your model on all the tournaments.
If you want to.
If you want to. Okay, where were we? Okay, another anonymous. Do you see a way to translate Numerai reputation to Erasure? So Erasure has its own reputation scheme, right? I guess maybe for the tournament users who've been around for a while who do have a good reputation, is there a way we're going to translate that over?
Yeah, it's sort of like interesting if you could just like sign into Erasure with your Numerai account, but unfortunately that doesn't even like make sense with a blockchain decentralized application, because there are no really like user accounts. You're just you're staking from MetaMask, and you don't really have user accounts. So there isn't very much that's going to be happening on our servers. It's just going to be all on the blockchain and IPFS.
Yeah.
So it's hard for us to do things like porting reputation or whatever.
So Erasure has its own way of calculating and measuring and also displaying its own reputation. But I guess there isn't anything that stops you as a seller of your prediction to signal your ability like outside of that channel, right? Like off chain. So you could just tell people, hey, I'm a top 100 Numerai user, and just tell people.
Yeah.
You could also tell them I'm a Kaggle Grandmaster, even though you just started off on Erasure. They might buy your feed because of that.
Yeah, use your Numerai username, and we will trust you.
Okay. Couple comments from General. What Cass says, my guess is Jordan and Ken are going to be gone. Who knows? Wait and see.
Anson is so hot.
Thanks, Julian. Okay.
Yeah, that could be right, that those are the sentiments that are going.
Yeah. Good guess. Okay, another anonymous. Can a minimum fraction, for example, 50% of the prize pool, be guaranteed to be paid out each week? Maybe split between those who beat the threshold, weighted by stake.
Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of thing that's, maybe something like that could work, but I would want it to be part of a bigger change where, where a number of things happened.
Yeah.
But I do like these, these ideas. Actually, Brian's, what's his name on Rocket Chat?
J9S.
J9S, don't know why.
J9S is Jack Nines, which is a hand in poker that you can start off with.
Oh, okay. His favorite hand.
His favorite hand.
And what's the S?
Like Jack Nines.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like aces. Okay.
Yeah.
Got you.
Quick shout out to J9S. Isn't he the best? He always fixes all whenever you guys have any complaints or feedbacks and bugs, he just fixes it immediately. So shout out to J9S.
And he's real talk.
Yeah.
He'll come up to you and just be like, this is wrong.
Yeah.
And so he's compiled the list of the user feedback and advice and things like that, and it's looking really good. Like it's a really good document to work off coming as we try to make these fixes.
Yeah. One thought I have about the way our staking tournament works, and something that we've talked about a lot before, is in a way it kind of feels like, okay, we started off with scheme, but then it got attacked this way, so we put a band-aid on this side. Then it got attacked this way, then we put a band-aid on that side. But then every time we do that, it just gets more and more complicated until that it's quite hard to explain to someone who's new to the tournament or just new to the company, like what is going on. And in a way, I think a lot of times when we're thinking about tournament structure, payout structure, we're balancing doing the right thing and what we think is game theory optimal for all parties, but also we want it to be simple and straightforward. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's yeah, it's very hard to people when they first come. They're like, why is this so complicated? Like, can't I just put 10 numeraire and just like, why is there this whole auction? And but some of it has to be this sort of like there's a minimum complexity, but there are parts of the site that are really not minimum. Like the whole like you upload predictions, it has to be correlated with example predictions, and it has to what are the other things? It has the weird like checks for variance and all stuff that we just like had to patch. And a lot of that is to do with the kind of sensitivity of log loss to large predictions. So if you say that everything is has a probability of 0.5 and you make one 0.99, then you can actually get a really good log loss if you get lucky. So that kind of thing was what got all these patchy things to be in the middle of your uploads. Now, AUC completely resistant to outliers like that because it basically ranks all the predictions. So that's why I think it's the right kind of metric to use, and then we can lift some of the awkwardness.
Yeah. Okay, question about NMR. Recently, NMR was listed on Poloniex and hit BTC. Was Numerai responsible for this? Do you plan to reach other exchanges?
I did not know we were on hit BTC, actually.
Go with NMR.
So, but Poloniex, I saw that one. Yeah, we don't often talk about stuff like exchanges, and I mean, we've often said we once, like Bittrex listed us without really any involvement. I mean, Bittrex sent us 3 months after listing us, sent us an application form to apply to be listed on Bittrex, and we were like, we already listed because you listed us without asking, and then they just like wanted to kind of cover their tracks and pretend we applied. So we were like, fuck you. But yeah, now a lot of you guys know that like we have investors in the crypto space and things like that, and I think a lot of them are working to help Numerai in ways that they can, and I think we will. I can't imagine why we wouldn't be on more exchanges if we have an application that's actually working with lots of users and really clever use case. So I hope that kind of thing keeps happening, and I think it's good for the space of crypto to have exchanges actually care about having things that are actually working.
Okay. Does the leaderboard actually represent the value of a competitor to Numerai?
Not really.
I think in many ways it represents the way that we want it to.
Yeah.
Right? Like in tournament space, if you consistently beat the benchmark that we give you, then yes, you are a good user to us. Whether or not the benchmark that we've picked is good for the hedge fund, that is a different story. So I think the way to think about it for users is that like we're going to give you some data, we're going to give you some targets, and we're going to give you a benchmark. Your job, forget Sharp, forget fund performance. Your job is just to predict those targets. If you do consistently, you'll be on the leaderboard. If you're on the leaderboard, then you're a good user. Now, we might change that target. We might change the benchmark. We might change the way we pay out. But I think to us, consistent performance week over week is what we want, right?
Yeah. It is roughly what we want.
Yeah.
It's, without, yeah, you can even have very good, well, probably not on Numerai, but like hypothetically, you could have a very good sharp model that we also don't want to trade in our hedge fund. You could think of selling insurance, you're selling in put options, or basically just selling any kind of insurance. It's gonna look like you just have all this money coming in, and it just every month you get more money, and then suddenly one of those insurance policies needs to claim, and then it's this catastrophic loss. So that would be a high sharp model all the way until it loses everything. So we also don't, even sharp isn't quite what we want. But it's much closer than other things right now.
So I guess if a new user joins Numerai and wants to do the right thing and asks, what should I be doing? What is good behavior? What would you say?
I think earning money is still the right thing to say. Try to earn money. And staking and earning money over a long period is a very good sign that you're doing it right.
Cool.
And a lot of people have that as their objective anyway.
True. When will Numerai switch to using AUC rather than cross entropy as an evaluation metric for staking? What is cross entropy?
It's another one of these metrics. I don't know as much about it. I've been kind of like looking at into the weeds of AUC, but I don't know that much about cross entropy. Maybe you guys can, whoever asked that, can say why they think that's better than AUC in the Rocket Chat. But yeah, we are looking at all these things. I mean, Kaggle is a great. They have all these tournaments, and you look at how many of the binary classification ones were AUC. Log loss equals cross entropy.
I see. Thanks, Daners.
Was that your question, Daners? Maybe. So what was I saying?
Something about Kaggle.
Oh yeah, like Kaggle have a lot of competitions, and almost all the binary classification ones use AUC. I haven't actually checked that personally, but that's what I was told by one of the users that I've been talking to about this change. Yeah.
Okay. Have you followed the evolution of Veil? Can you clarify the differences between Veil and Erasure? How will you avoid the liquidity problems that can be observed in Veil? So for some of you guys who might not know what Veil is, maybe we can start off with like just some history of Veil and Erasure.
Well, I just know the Veil people. And Veil is like, it's like I don't really know. I think it's like an Augur. It uses Augur to let anybody make markets, but you can make markets on Augur, but maybe it's like a nicer way of doing that. And they're very, very good engineers and team. And so yeah, originally I'd spoken to them about helping to build Erasure, and then they kind of wanted to build Veil, and it's more like consumer oriented. Like it's because I want to build something for quants, for data scientists, and Veil is much more like just like a Augur skin.
Do you know about these liquidity problems that can be observed in Veil? I guess that's the same liquidity problems observed in Augur.
Yeah, and that's very different. Like for Erasure, it's about selling a prediction feed. It's not about betting on your predictions in like a betting, like trading market. So Erasure will be much more peaceful, and it won't have the problems of liquidity and things like that, unless you were making a feed and you didn't end up selling it very quickly, or it took or you thought it was good but then no one wanted to buy it or something like that.
Okay, can we expect larger data sets in the future with more features or rows?
Yeah, one of our decisions in the beginning of the year, like planning, was maybe we shouldn't have we don't need to focus on like changing the features in order to fix certain things in the tournament. Like, we could prove that Numerai is working really well without adding new data. And then once we prove it's working, we can just keep adding data for the rest of the history of the company. So getting that kind of like point of, okay, we have a model that's working, we have an optimizer that's working, we have users that are incentivized, and now let's take that to like, okay, how much better can you make the user models by changing the incentives?
So I guess, yes, you can expect more features and rows, maybe not immediately.
Yeah. It's not a priority in the next like 6 months.
Yeah, but it's definitely part of our vision.
Yeah.
Okay, can stakes with live log loss between LN2 and 0.693 be returned with no winnings instead of burned? So this has been like an idea that's floating around Rocketchat for a long time. This idea of having a neutral zone between the burn zone and the pay zone. Something that we talked about a lot, actually.
Yeah.
Where did we land?
It's in Brian's document, right?
Yeah.
And again, it's one of these things that's like part of this collection of ideas we need to synthesize into a really like a new release that's substantial. So for example, that might not really apply if we switch to AUC and so on.
But we hear you, and thanks for the feedback.
Yeah.
Just keep them coming. These ideas really help shape the future of Numerai, I think. Okay. Are you still going to answer all these questions here that you can't disclose any information yet because of legal concerns?
Is this Daenerys' question?
Maybe. So, I mean, last Fireside Chat, we said that we wanted to be more transparent because we were hearing from you guys feedback that we're not giving you enough information. And I think, this Fireside Chat, we're also trying to be more transparent, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We always do the maximum.
Yeah. I think there's always going to be some legal issues that we can't talk about. Maybe that's just inevitable, but we're going to try to challenge each other to be as transparent as possible to you guys, because that's, I think, the only way for us to work together is if we trust each other. Or not. I don't know. On blockchain, I guess you don't need to trust each other, but at this stage of the company, it feels like we need people to believe in this vision together, and we have to be transparent to people so that they know where we're trying to go. They know what we're working on.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's also mutually beneficial. I mean, if you guys, where we've come to now, it's been a lot of user-driven ideas and us seeing, oh, this isn't working. And I think we could have gone faster if we didn't have a lot of other things going on. But yeah, try to share everything that's important. Yeah. there's still a lot of regulations, U.S. hedge funds that are not going to go away.
Mhm.
When we get to a certain size, which I hope you guys will help us with, it becomes very hard to hide things. Like what happens often is like, I don't know, like you guys you must see big hedge funds like, oh, 2 Sigma returned this much or whatever. Like, why are they telling the press about that? And sometimes there's some regulations that make them tell because they're such a size that they have to share. And then other times it's just leaked from one of their LPs. They have so many LPs, and journalists ask the LPs, and it's not illegal for the LPs to share it.
So maybe you'll get more information later.
Sure, there'll be one day where it's like, this was Numerai's returns in 2021.
Yeah. Okay, this is from Wakax. What types of data will Erasure be open to? Just financial data, or will other types of predictions be also acceptable, like politics, sports?
Yeah, well, Erasure, the protocol, is designed for anything. So you can upload a picture of Donald Trump, stake it with Numerai, and someone might want to buy it from you. However, our app that we're building, like our website, our client of the protocol, will start off being just about stocks. We're going to, I think the next would be crypto predictions, but the reason stocks is because it's just the kind of what's integrity kind of thing to do, where it's like, we don't want to make something where like it doesn't actually matter. Like we want to actually have these predictions be something that we want to buy, and we are the only ones that can analyze. We can only analyze stocks, and so if we were buying crypto predictions and not trading them, it would be like kind of stupid. So we're starting with stocks.
In a way, this also ties back to like the idea of liquidity, right? Like, how much liquidity is there in the markets for politics and sports betting versus financial betting?
Yeah.
Would you say that there's, I don't know, you probably know the markets better, but is there like a much deeper liquidity pool for financial data than there is for sports betting?
I mean, finance, hedge funds and things are some of the, wealthiest institutions. And if they get excited about buying data from a platform, it's quite a lot better than, I think, than sports predictions. But we don't know. I mean, but that's also a sort of statement about, is this a consumer thing, or is this a rich, smart people thing? And in so a lot of ways, Numerai, it's about this smart population of data scientists, and the people who invest in our hedge fund are wealthy individuals and institutions. Now, those institutions actually very frequently are pension funds and things like that, where they're managing lots of other money. But yeah, I think
financial data is where it's at.
I think so.
Yeah. Cool. Will more tournaments be available in the future? I think we went over that. Did we?
Yeah.
Yes, maybe. Probably
fewer.
Fewer first, but maybe more later.
Or maybe we go down to 1 again.
Or 100. Okay. How will Erasure benefit Numerai? What will be your main focus? That's a big question. So how will Erasure benefit Numerai? How does that fit into our company vision? Let's dig there first.
Data plus talent equals a hedge fund. So we have built Numerai as a way for attracting talent. And we have, some of the best data scientists, some of the top Kaggle users, and the things that we have seen that they can do, it's amazing. And the question is, though, they can only model our data. What are we going to do about getting other data? And how are we going to compete with big hedge funds that have been buying data over decades? And so we needed to make something that we can crowdsource the intelligence, but can we crowdsource the data? And so when you're making a model that predicts, suppose you collect a bunch of stock market data and you send those predictions to Erasure, you are effectively sending a compression of that data to Erasure. And if we buy it, we effectively have the data, the source data. We have its use. So that's the main idea, creating crowdsourcing the data side and the intelligence, and Erasure's the data, Numerai's the intelligence.
Okay, so given that there's these two separate things that we're working on, which one is our focus? Can we focus on both at the same time?
Yeah. They are two different things, but they are similar, as you guys know, and they both help NMR, both help Numerai, both help our investors, both help our user base. So they have similar benefits, but they are quite different. And Erasure is definitely going to look very different and feel very different to Numerai. One thing we're not doing is spending any time kind of on business development stuff. We do not have a team of people in New York trying to get hedge funds to use Erasure. I don't have the patience for that. We want to first prove it, and then maybe later it'll be so good that all hedge funds will want to start buying the data on Erasure because it's staked, it's got verifiable reputation, and you just kind of feel like you can't not use it.
So a related question that I've seen on Rocket Chat is the employees of Numerai, what are they going to work on? How many of them are going to work on the tournament versus how many are going to work on Erasure? Or how are the engineers splitting their time? Maybe that's something that we can also explore.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll answer it. We have two teams. We have the tournament team who's focused on working on the tournament. And then we have the Erasure team that's focusing on building Erasure. Now, obviously, there's a lot of overlap in terms of the structure of the backend systems, the way we think about what goes on chain, what doesn't go off chain. So we're collaborating, but there are two separate teams that are working on these two projects independently. So there's no fear that we're going to just drop the Numerai tournament and focus only on Erasure, or the other way around. These are two projects that we fully believe in and will continue to work on.
Yeah.
Cool. Can you provide some more details on the NMR burn? Were the NMR already burnt? What is the plan for remaining mintable NMR? So we already talked about that, right?
Yeah, we did.
Okay, cool. NASDAQ jockey. Stake sizes aren't correlated with model confidence, but rather with NMR count size. If you change to AUC, will you find a way to eliminate staking?
Definitely don't eliminate staking.
Yeah, staking is something that works really well.
It works, yeah, it does work well, but what this questioner is worried about, we could solve that correlation problem with other changes that don't mean we have to get rid of staking.
I think there's this idea of okay, if you're rewarding people for staking, then you're rewarding people who have the most NMR already, not just the most intelligent people. I think we talked about this earlier a little bit. We want the NMR economy and the tournament to work so well such that if you are confident in your intelligence of your model, then it would be rational for you to actually just go acquire the NMR stake, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. You know, the whole point of the stake is like a financial barrier that prevents simple attacks and makes people only do it if they believe in it. Unfortunately, it's a barrier, and it's kind of annoying if you just getting started. You're like, man, I'm not really sure my model's good enough to buy $1,000 of this cryptocurrency. So we sort of hope people buy $50 and then win, and if they keep winning, it won't feel like then eventually in the long term they'll catch up. So we just need people to stick around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a way, that's kind of like how hedge funds work, right? Like if you think you have a good strategy, but you have no money, then you need to go get some money to start trading.
Yeah.
Before you can make profits, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, we definitely hear you that like acquiring NMR is not the most easy thing. It's not the most frictionless experience. That's something that we definitely recognize and we do want to work on, but probably not our core focus right now.
But if you feel, if you feel quite secure in the fact that the probability of your model not burning is 80%, like 80% chance you're going to get your stake back at minimum. Like, do the math, and it's like, okay, maybe I will buy more NMR.
Yeah.
But right now it's too volatile to do that, I think.
Yeah. Another comment about how sexy I am. Thank you again, Julian. If Numerai releases all the test data, does it mean the validation will remain the same in the tournament file and test, and live will then become one?
Yeah, this was an idea as well.
Yeah.
Releasing every target of the test data so that you can kind of train with more data and more recent data, frankly. And surely this is something we should be doing. But the problem is obviously giving up our ability to use the test data for its purpose, which is for us to test the model and see, man, do we want to trade this one, or maybe just see how it performs on live before we actually trade it. But now we are building every week, more and more live data, and maybe if we just rely on the live performance as our kind of final check, we don't need to rely on the test performance. And I think that's a very interesting direction. If you kind of know as much as we do, like we don't know the live targets at the time of giving them to you, but everything before that we do know, and we're going to share with you. It's something nice about that, but it's quite a scary change for us because a lot of our subsequent processes rely on the ability to use the test data to do some analysis before we trade. So,
yeah, that seems like an interesting trade-off. We might get a little bit more performance from user models, but we lack the ability to actually know beforehand what their performance is going to be.
Yeah. Unless stake size was super correlated with live performance, or P was very correlated with live performance.
Yeah.
And then we would just be like, cool, let's trust the staking. Like, that's why we made it. So that's a bold future. It's kind of how Erasure will be in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
There's no limits on what data you can use.
There's no text.
Yeah, and we kind of trust that what you've done is going to work live because your historical performance was good. And if we can take a Numerai user and be like, look, this guy's been on Numerai for 18 months. He has a really good live performance. We should just keep trusting he's going to have good live performance.
Can reputation be tied to meta model contribution?
Yeah, I mean, this is like originally we did spend quite a lot of time on this, like around maybe back in 2016, even like figuring out how much should we weight this user over this user. And a lot of that was like almost helped us discover how much overfitting was going on the test set back when we were paying on it. And then when we switched to staking in NMR, we kept finding like the safest thing to do is to make user models equal weight as long as they were staked. And then that ended up being a very good, well-performing model. So yeah, the meta model for a long time has been like equal weighting, but doing a lot of careful filtering with stakes and other things to get to the equal weighted model. So everyone in the meta model is kind of equal weighted, but you know that's changes a lot, and there are definitely a lot more things we probably will do soon. But the power of the staking ended up making the meta model. It's like people are creating their own meta model by staking, basically. Do they want to be in the meta model or not? And therefore, this sort of meta model itself is kind of crowdsourced.
So there's also this idea that I think you brought up last Fireside chat of dominion. Like we want users to be in control of how much money they can earn and they cannot earn.
Yeah.
And so everything that goes into the equation of how much money you're earning should only be things that are visible and also changeable by the user, right?
Exactly. And that's sort of, imagine there was a tournament where you won, and it was like you won in terms of log loss, but we were like, you know what, we didn't actually include you in the meta model, so you get nothing. And they would be like, why didn't you include me in the meta model? I won. And we'd be like, oh, that's some complicated reason to do with us not being able to optimize your model or something like that.
And then we couldn't tell you.
And they were like, what? Tell me how to fix it. You're like, well, we're not going to share it with you. Everything's encrypted.
Yeah.
So that would suck. So we wanted to be like, yeah, in your control.
Yeah. Okay. Joined a little late. Were you talking about new targets? Are there plans to remove any of the targets or modify them? Yes, they'll be coming soon, but we'll let you know. Julian, can earnings be paid out in stablecoin, for example, USDC? This is something also that we've talked about a lot, but we decided against.
There's a hypothetical stablecoin which is stable. Then that's a question that you would want to consider. But the stablecoins now are like really not. Like how surprising would it be if there was one catastrophic event in the DAI stablecoin in the next 5 years? Like I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if like the other stablecoins that are like backed by companies and stuff also had these problems. And the reason for that is because prices are not stable in real life. Like
skeptic, Richard.
They aren't. Things are moving. I think prices are part of markets. Markets are part of people's changing minds. And you can do some wizardry to hedge certain risks, but it's weird how many people are just saying, "Oh, cool, it's got stable coins now." Like, okay, why are they stable? Will they stay stable? I'm skeptical.
Cool. So a couple comments on Rocket Chat. I think this was going back to, the idea of if we're rewarding through staking only, then people with more NMR are going to just end up earning more of it, and the initial distribution skewed things. I think we talked about that.
Do you think your fund will be profitable?
Yeah. Not the company, but the fund. Okay.
If I didn't, I'd put it all into stablecoins. So yeah, I always think the fund will be profitable.
Yeah. I mean, there's what we think, and then there's what we want and what we're going to work on. And it's what we want and we're going to work on. But yeah, so that's it. That's all the questions we have. Thanks for tuning in. Keep the feedback rolling. We really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed this fire chat.
Oh, and a shout out to the memes channel.
Oh yeah, George.
George.
Newcomer. If you guys haven't seen the memes channel, it's pretty
hashtag memes on Rocket Chat.
Pretty entertaining. But yeah, thank you for everything that you guys do. You're really important to us, and we hope to catch you guys in the next Fireside Chat.
Yeah, and I haven't been on Rocket Chat a lot, but I'm particularly interested at the moment in fixing some of these problems, and you guys have been really helpful. So might see me there more, but also email me, richard@numerai.ai, whenever you want. Cool. And I have lots of weird email filters. If I don't reply, Rocket Chat me.
If Richard doesn't reply, you can email me, slyfox@numerai.ai too. I don't have that many filters. Okay, thanks for tuning in. Catch you next time.